Saving and restoring parameters with GSoft2 couldn't be easier. Just connect to the drive like always and go to the Parameters dialog. Click this button to read all of the parameters from the drive. We see the Drive Parameters menu pop up over here, and all of the parameters from the drive fill in this chart. Let's save the parameters from the drive to the computer's hard drive. Now when we open that file we just saved, it puts it down here under File Parameters. So these are the parameters read from the variable frequency drive, and these are the parameters read from the computer's hard drive. We can even do a compare, where we see any drive parameters that are different than the default, the file parameters that are different than the default, and the difference between the file and the drive parameters, which, since we haven't changed anything, shows nothing. Let's change a couple of the file parameters just a little bit, do a compare, and sure enough, it gives us a list of exactly what the differences are between the drive and the file parameters. Perfect. When I hit Write All, we see a list of all the parameters that are about to be written and can tell from the values that we're about to write the file parameters, not the drive parameters. Remember, when you change the drive parameters, they update the drive instantly, so there's no need to write them in bulk. And you can deselect any parameters you don't want to overwrite. I'll deselect a few of these without changing anyway. Great. Let's write these file parameters to the drive. Uh-oh, what happened? And look at the drive. It has a fault. What's that all about? Well, that's because you have to have permission from the drive to overwrite all of the drive's parameters. And this dialog is reminding us that to get that permission, we have to set parameter 906 to a 1. Let's clear the drive fault by pressing Reset. And go to the drive parameters, parameter 906, and set it to a 1. It didn't take, did it? Why not? Well, think about it. It doesn't make any sense to get permission remotely to write remotely, does it? No, of course not. Someone needs to have put the forethought into enabling remote writes, or someone needs to be physically at the drive to make sure it's okay to enable the remote writes. In either case, someone has to make a conscious decision it's okay to remotely update the drive. It's all about safety. So let's manually enter a 1 in parameter 906 via the keypad. And now if we hit Write All, now it works as expected. We see a list of the parameters that were written, and if any parameters failed to write, we would see that here. Perfect. Parameter 906 doesn't survive a power cycle, so every time the drive power is cycled, you have to go re-enable parameter 906 again to ensure you really did mean to allow remote writes to the drive. We're using a 1 horsepower drive, but suppose we wanted to upgrade to a larger drive, but use these parameters. Well, that's what this rating button is for. Let's change to a 10 horsepower drive. It builds a new set of file parameters and uses as many of the current parameters as it can and changes all the defaults to match what the 10 horsepower drive expects. Of course, if we hit the Compare button, we can see an exact list of differences between the new 10 horsepower file parameters and the original 1 horsepower drive parameters. It also changes the drive model number. So if we try to write this 10 horsepower file to a 1 horsepower drive, we get a fault because of the mismatch. GSoft2 won't let you put parameters intended for one drive in a different size drive. I love that. So the bottom line is, it's super easy to read the parameters from the drive, save them to disk, read them back, make any changes you want, and write all the parameters to the drive if the copy parameters is enabled and the parameters aren't locked out. That makes it super easy to configure a lot of drives and avoid all of that manual keypad entry stuff. Click here to learn more about the GS4 drive. Click here to learn about Automation Direct's free support options, and click here to subscribe to Automation Direct's YouTube channel so you get notified when we post new videos.